American 472, Washington Tower, 1 star, 32017.
Did you see that?
Crash, crash, crash. This is alert 3. Crash, crash, crash. This is alert 3.
On a clear winter night, an American Eagle CRJ-700 and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter collided over the Potomac River, killing all aboard both aircraft. 60 passengers, 4 crew members, and 3 Army aviators gone in an instant. To understand how this happened, we begin with the families demanding answers. The first responders who arrived within minutes, and the experts trying to understand how this could all happen. Good evening, I'm Chris Smith.
And I'm Katie Barlow. Thank you so much for joining us on Fox 5 for our special coverage.
On January 29th, 2025, 67 lives were lost after a Black Hawk Army helicopter collided midair with an American Airlines passenger jet as it approached Washington Reagan National Airport. There were no survivors.
On that night, Fox 5 brought you 22 hours of nonstop breaking news coverage. Our team of journalists worked tirelessly to bring the latest information on what and how this tragedy could happen.
And in the years since, our work has continued, pressing those in power for answers, reporting on lawmakers' push for change, and elevating the voices and wishes of the victims' friends and family members who were left behind with nothing but the memories of their loved ones. From New England to Kansas and from Denmark to right here in the DMV, the victims of this tragedy came from all over the world, touching the lives of thousands of people. Tonight, we're speaking with some of the family members of victims. We're hearing from a few of the first responders that immediately responded to the scene of the crash and bravely dove into the freezing waters as part of the recovery efforts. And we'll talk to an aviation expert and an attorney to discuss how air safety in the nation's capital has evolved in the past year and the work that's still left to be done. Katie?
Well, to kick things off, I want to introduce you to all of the family members who are here joining us tonight who lost someone on Flight 5342. First, to my right, we have Justin, Bill, and Renee Parente, the brother, father, and mother of Anthony. Anthony was returning home from a business trip when his life was unexpectedly cut short. To my left are Lovey and Ashley Stovall, the mother and wife of Mikey Stovall. Mikey was a member of the United Association of Union Plumbers and Pipe Fitters in Prince George's County and was on his way back from a duck hunting trip in Kansas with a group of his friends. Amy Hunter and Rachel Ferez are the cousins of Peter Livingston, who, along with his wife and 2 daughters, Donna, Everly, and Lydia Livingston, all perished in the crash. The Livingstons were returning home from a figure skating championships. Also joining us is Audrey Patel, wife of aerospace engineer Vikesh Patel. Audrey and Vikesh were newlyweds at the time of the crash, having just been married in April. And finally tonight is Matt Collins, brother of Chris Collins, a Massachusetts native and a beloved dog shelter volunteer who is remembered as an adventurer and a loving and compassionate lover of nature. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for joining us tonight. We have a lot to discuss. I want to make sure that we talk about each of your loved ones that you lost, and we're going to get into it with each of the families here. But I want to ask, I'm going to start with Justin, who's Anthony's brother. Justin recently designed what I think you will be wearing throughout this week of work that you're going to be doing in D.C., a T-shirt for the family members who lost someone. I think we have a picture of the T-shirt that we can show up there. Justin, you designed that.
Yeah.
My question to you, have you always been artistic, or did this tragedy bring that out? Is this something that Anthony would be surprised about, or
No.
would he knew that you would have this kind of talent and put it to use in this way?
No. You know, we were very different people. I'm the creative brain, he's the analytical brain. You know, we had 2 different groups of friends, you know, 2 different lifestyles, but we were the same person. You know, he wouldn't be surprised that, you know, I did this for not just him, but for, you know, all of the families. The design was a collaboration of kind of the legacy that they've left behind, kind of the mission that this year has put on us, and I guess the stories that we're just going to keep telling until we get the results that we're looking for.
And Renee and Bill, I want to talk to you about what this grief journey has looked like. Grief is not linear. It pops up in unexpected ways, and it never gets smaller, but life, for better or worse, grows around the grief. What does grief look like today for your family?
Hasn't changed. I wake up every morning without my son. So it hasn't changed.
Yeah, for me, I just wonder, you know, will I ever be happy again? And with all these folks around here, we're all grieving the same way, and it helps. It helps. You know, we work together. Some of us more than others. They work tireless, endless nights and hours putting things together to make sure that this group of people, these beautiful people that died, didn't die in vain. And we got to keep this in front of the media and the public to make sure that things are changed. We can't let them go and die in vain.
Amy and Rachel, I want to ask you about some of that work so that these deaths were not in vain. Anytime there's tragedy or loss, it often leaves work for the living, whether that means planning the funeral or just coping with grief. That's been especially true for all of you, and especially true in a national spotlight. The work of the living continues so that these deaths are not in vain. That's a big challenge. But can you tell me a little bit about what the work looks like today, this week, and what the goals are?
You know, I think early on our group of family members came together and realized that this crash should never have happened. This was a series of mistakes, a series of systems that had lined up that didn't keep our family members safe. And we don't want that for anyone else's family members. And I think the second realization we had was that it wasn't a guarantee that even if we figured out exactly what happened the night of January 29th, anybody would fix the problem. And so we learned, have learned along the way from other disaster victim families that we have to use our voices to ensure that, you know, as Bill said, that the legacy of our loved ones is kept alive through change, and that this means something. This results in something better for all those who are left behind. So I think that's what we've been trying to do, and this week is a really important week for that work. Maybe you want to.
Sure. Yeah, we have the NTSB board meeting is happening tomorrow, and we expect that to be a long day. And we will finally hear, after almost a year, what their recommendations are going to be to help ensure that this never happens again. And then it is the job of Congress and our government to ensure that they put into law quickly what the NTSB safety recommendations are.
A different kind of exhaustion, I expect, while you're grieving and doing all of this at the same time. I know the work of the living can sometimes be a blessing because it gives you somewhere to focus the energy. But we also want to make sure that we're talking about the memory of all of the people that you lost. I want to talk to you, Matt, about Chris. I want to hear about Chris a little bit, but I understand that he was a Patriots fan along with your son. Is that right? So I can't help but think that he would be happy, maybe not the entire country, but he would be happy with the Super Bowl coming up.
He would be ecstatic today.
Tell me a little bit about Chris.
Yeah, I mean, he was an avid outdoorsman, hiker, explorer. He traveled all throughout the world, really. Bali, Malaysia, Iceland. He's been all over the place. He loved animals. He loved his wife. He loved his family. He loved my kids like his own kids. And it's been a year from hell.
You mentioned the relationship that he had with your son and that he loved your kids as your own, as his own. There are no days off in parenting, and so in this year of hell, you've had to continue to parent through all of this, and that applies to many of you, I know. But can you talk about that particular role of parenting through grief in this way, and both explaining it to your child, but also grieving alongside them?
Yeah, it's been a journey that I hope nobody ever has to do. It's been tough. It's been rewarding working with a lot of the other family members and trying to prevent something like this from ever happening again. And I think my kids seeing me do that brings them some proudness and some joy, as to honor that's honoring their uncle, and that's his legacy. And like Bill said, like Rachel said, we're doing this so that they're not forgotten, and their legacies are honored. And we're not going to stop. We are not going to stop.
Ashley, I know that applies to you too with Jake. You and Lovey are dealing with your own grief, but also grieving with Jake and parenting him at the same time after you lost Mikey. I want to talk a little bit about Mikey. I understand he was a baseball coach of Jake's team. I think becoming a coach or doing anything with children at that age is one of the most selfless things you can do with your time. So that already speaks to who Mikey was, but tell us a little bit about him and about Jake.
So it's funny, Mikey didn't even really like baseball before, but he thought his dad coached his soccer team when he was a kid. So he was like, I'm going to be an assistant coach for Jake's baseball. And when he went to the meeting, they were like, no, you're not going to be an assistant coach. We need a coach. So he started coaching. And he kept thinking, like, I'm doing a disservice to these kids. They deserve better than me. But the kids loved him. The parents loved him. The next season, they all wanted Mikey again and again, and he loved it. So it just kind of became our life, among many other things. I mean, Mikey had so many hobbies. And, in the last year of his life, Mikey and Jake were spending so much time together. Baseball, hunting, golfing, snowboarding. God, I was just thinking about this the other day. There was like more BMX riding. They would just load up the bikes in the truck and go to the jumps. And I was like, man, I'm getting kind of jealous here, So
they needed that time.
They did. And that's the thing. After somebody told me recently that at his service, someone had said, it's almost like Mikey knew, because who spends that much time with his kid, and who tells his wife that he loves her that much because he did, and who never says no to any trip. It's like he knew he had to live so much because it wasn't going to last long. So I'm proud of that.
And good that they had that time together.
Good and
he
hard.
learned the rules of baseball.
Yeah, and now I know.
That's a testament to love, for sure.
I know things about baseball that I can never forget. So.
All right, there's still much more to talk about with these families. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. You were doing Welcome back into Fox 5 special coverage as we mark 1 year since the tragic midair collision over the Potomac River. If you're just joining us, we've had an emotional discussion with some of the family members of the victims who were on board Flight 5342. Now we're going to speak with Audrey Patel, who lost her beloved Vikesh. You were newlyweds at the time of the crash. Tell us a little bit about Vikesh. You tell us he was optimistic, and he left his family behind, and that family has grown even since the crash. Tell us a little bit about him and about your family now.
Yeah, so my husband, I called him Vic. He was a people-first person. He was an incredible leader in the aerospace industry, and he was relentlessly pursuing being the best version of himself for our family and professionally. The reason he was flying on a Wednesday was because he had a goal of only being away 5 nights a month in 2025. And then it meant he was gone forever. And he was so funny. I mean, this man made me laugh so hard, I spit out my toothpaste when I was brushing my teeth, like every night. And he called his parents 3 times a day, every day. He was a rock for his older sister, who was only 14 months older than him, so they were almost like twins. And at the time of the crash, his older sister, Denisha, was 3 months pregnant, and I was 6 weeks pregnant. So we had just found out that we were expecting our first child, and so this year has been incredibly hard to go through welcoming our son without him to see it, because one of the things he looked forward to most in life was becoming a father.
Navigating the postpartum world while also navigating this tragedy is unimaginable. If you feel comfortable, tell us a little bit about your son and the early motherhood journey.
Yeah, he is incredibly sweet and calm. I think the universe knew I needed a break. He's been very easy.
Good job, universe.
He's got dark brown eyes and a dimple on his cheek like his dad. And it's just been incredible having the family support that I have. My parents and sisters have been on rotation, living with me to help me care for him. As far as trying to give my son the life that he would have with his father around, I constantly ask myself, like, what would Vic do? And it even came down to picking out the name. And I knew that he would never use a name that his sister didn't like. So I was texting Denisha while I was in labor about what my top names
That's
were.
That's talented multitasking.
Because I wanted to make sure it was as close as possible as what we would have done if he was here.
That's beautiful, and texting while in labor is a different level of strong. But you already knew by that point that you had to be. I want to talk about the Livingstons, and they were part of this community that was left heartbroken in the aftermath of the crash, and that was the world of U.S. figure skating. They were a tight-knit group. There were elite prodigy athletes as a part of it, their families, their coaches, many of whom trained in Loudoun County's Ashburn Ice House, Skate Quest in Reston, and the MedStar Capitals Iceplex in Arlington. Many of those skaters and their families were on their way back from the 2025 Figure Skating Championships in Wichita, Kansas, where that American Airlines flight departed from. So the Livingstons, they were together when the plane went down, and clearly traveling to something like this for both girls, they functioned as a family unit.
Yeah, I mean, they were at a high point for their family. They had 2 girls who were top in the nation in their sport. They were so excited about having 2 in the National Youth Development Camp. Everly was the oldest, and she was shy and driven and so talented. Liddy, the younger, was a spark of life and mischievous and sassy and fun. And I don't know, they all had big personalities. My cousin Peter had a big personality, a great sense of humor. His wife had a big personality, a wonderful laugh. And it was, it was a real high point for their family that they were coming home from.
Skating at that level is no small endeavor, I understand, and can take the full family to be able to accomplish it at that level.
But to have 2 kids that reach that level just shows the dedication, I think, of both parents. It was Peter, who is our cousin, who absolutely adored skating. He was a hockey player.
Hockey player, right?
Yep. And in his mind, his 2 little princesses were going to be hockey players. And as soon as he married Donna, she was this spectacular, vivacious woman who loved sparkly things and dresses. And
there's a little bit of that in figure skating.
Yeah, and those kids, those girls went right to that. So he lost his hockey dream, but he kept the skating dream. And he created the Livingston Iceplex in the backyard of his little suburban house, and every year it would be on social media about the progress of the Livingston Iceplex and getting this little ice skating rink frozen. Yeah.
Well, hockey's loss was a figure skating's gain in that situation, but definitely clear that it was a remarkable family effort for them to be there. One of the other local communities that were left with a hole in their hearts was the UA Steamfitters Local 602, a union representing workers in the heating, air conditioning, and refrigeration industry in Prince George's County. 7 of their members died in that crash as they were heading back home from a hunting trip in Kansas. Mikey Stovall was one of those members. We've already talked a little bit about Mikey, but he was with a group and they were having a good time hunting. And from the pictures I've seen online, he seems like he was pretty good at it. Maybe better than he was at learning the rules of baseball.
I think he was a little too good at hunting. Yeah. He had been hunting his whole life, right?
Pretty much.
And he was with a group of men, some that he worked with, 2 groomsmen from our wedding that he had known for a very long time, a childhood best friend, and it was something that they were going to do every year. You know, they had already spoke about the next year going back. So, yeah, they had a great time, ate a lot of really good food, but they were gone for too long. It was 7 days, and they all agreed that next year they wanted to do 5 days. It was too long. They said they missed us too much. I remember him saying, yeah, all the men, we all agreed that we miss our wives and kids too much. We're not doing 7 days next year. We're doing 5 days next year.
It sounds like his childhood friends went, Lovey. So is this something that he's done since he was little? Has hunting always been one of his endeavors?
No, he was more into soccer. I wouldn't let them. My husband wanted to get them BB guns, him and his younger brother.
Okay.
And I was like, no, absolutely not. So I think he.
So you're not the one who taught him how to shoot?
No. I think he was probably, both of them, my husband took a hunting class with them, a safety class, and they were probably 11 and 13 when they first started hunting, and I remember the first deer that Mikey got. And
there's a tradition that happens when you kill your first
yeah, they
deer.
brought it into our garage.
Yeah.
I think you were there. There was blood on their hands, and I'm going.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but I know that tradition all too well.
No, and even Jake, his son, has probably gotten 15 or 16 deer either by crossbow or shotgun or anything.
Oh, crossbow, that's more challenging.
And his nickname is Killer. He's 12 years old.
He might not appreciate us giving him that nickname on live TV, but that's all right. We just mentioned 2 of the communities that were collectively mourning. Obviously, there were many involved in this entire process. Our region, while not everyone on that plane is from our region, we feel like our region experienced some of that tragedy with you and have experienced some of the work that you've done in advocacy and lobbying since then. But I want to ask, what else do you need from our community within our Fox 5 viewing area around our region that you haven't gotten or that you need as you begin this next venture when you get, the next step from the NTSB? What do you need from our community? Amy.
I would say that probably the most important thing is once we get to the point where the NTSB final recommendations comes out, which is going to be tomorrow, and the House has the opportunity to do hearings related to it, that we asked for the public to support as much as they can, calling their local senators, their congresspeople, to ask for them to support any legislation that improves aviation safety. So all of the things, particularly the Rotor Act that is now at the House, that the Senate passed unanimously, and the White House has supported. We're very encouraged by that, and we expect that it will be included and swiftly pass through the House. And we're asking for support from the public to encourage Congress to close those safety loopholes.
And our job in the media will be to continue to educate folks as all of those things come up. Renee, you wanted to make sure that we mention Anthony's Laura, and I'll end with you or anyone else who wants to jump into this discussion. I think it was at least attributed to, wrongly or rightly, Ernest Hemingway, who says we experienced 2 deaths. The first when we're buried in the ground, the second the last time someone utters our name.
I was going to say that to you earlier.
We will continue to say their names as a part of this entire process, and the work of the living continues. But I just wanted to give you a chance to mention Laura and talk about and say Anthony's name one more time.
They were getting married in July, and she's just a beautiful person, and she'll be part of our family forever.
Amen.
We'll continue to say everyone's names. Thank you all so much for your time and your generosity in allowing us to honor each of your loved ones as you continue the journey, parenting and mothering and all of those things, advocating. We'll be following it all along as you continue to do it. Thank you for sharing our story. Our special coverage continues right after this break.
All right, we'll sit down with, NTSB Chairwoman Homendy, looking at that years-long investigation and the answers she's still pushing for from Congress. Plus, we sit down with a panel of attorneys and aviation experts looking back on that tragic night and the legal backlash some of the parties now face. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 5's special coverage marking 1 year since the deadly DCA mid-air collision over the Potomac River. Now, in the year since the crash, the NTSB has given several updates on their investigation and even recently weighed in on legislative pushes to make changes to DC's airspace to prevent a tragedy like this one from happening again. NTSB Chairwoman Jennifer Homendy has been one of the loudest voices, recently slamming a bill that would have reversed safety measures put in place in the wake of the mid-air collision over Reagan National Airport. Now, our Tom Fitzgerald sat down with Chairwoman Hamady for a one-on-one interview. Here's a part of their extensive conversation.
As you look back on it now, in your role when you speak to the American people, is it even possible to assure them that this could never happen again, or is that just an unknown that you can't give that answer?
I can't give that answer. We issue recommendations that will prevent it from happening again. But those are recommendations. And we have many times issued recommendations where no action was taken, and we end up with another tragedy and another tragedy and another tragedy. The first mid-air collision that we recommended collision avoidance systems was in 1968. And so in order to prevent it from happening again, you have to take the action that we tell you to take to prevent that next tragedy.
So that's just a small portion of Tom's nearly 20-minute sit-down with the chairwoman, and it's a lot to unpack. But first, let me introduce you all to our panel of aviation experts and attorneys. First is Ella Atkins. She's a professor in Virginia Tech's Aerospace Engineering Department. Thank you so much for joining us. And right next to me is Tom Simeone. He's managing partner of Simeone & Miller, LLP, a local law firm with a focus on aviation accidents. Thank you so much for joining us all tonight. A note to our viewers, though, neither Tom nor Ella are involved in any pending legal cases connected to this crash. They are rather here to lend us their expertise in their respective fields. So, Ella and Tom, like I said, thank you so much for joining us. So I want to get your reaction to Chairwoman Hamady's comments first. And Ella, I'll start with you.
I think it's incredibly important that the NTSB have a strong voice and that the FAA and government follow the advice. The FAA and the NTSB both work together to make sure that investigations are done carefully. The advice to increase the separation between helicopters and commercial traffic in the DC area was not offered lightly. It was based on a lot of investigative work that was done by the NTSB, and it should be followed. I fully support the comments.
All right, Tom, how about you?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm not an aviation expert, but have some experience with this, and I think the precautions that were taken right after the accident were good, and they were needed, and they'll hopefully save lives. And I think any step backwards is just a bad situation.
All right, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But Ella, first, we are still waiting for the NTSB's final recommendations, like we heard from some of the victims' families. Now, in the aftermath of this crash, what do you hope to see included in those recommendations?
First, what we expect to have included is that the helicopters and the aircraft will not share that airspace anymore, where there was such a very small difference in altitude between the helicopter route and the approach to runway 33. Generalizing, I believe we need to look at other airports, other similar situations where there can be low-flying air traffic on approach or departure to runways, so that this no longer has as much possibility, not only in DC, but in other areas as well. That's kind of the main thing, is to keep the traffic separated through policy. Also, better information, whether it's through data link or through shared channels and better communication.
All right, so while we wait for those recommendations, in your expert opinions, and Ella, I'll start with you again, has enough been done in the past year to make sure a tragedy like this never happens again?
It's hard to say that there's enough. Aviation safety is a moving target. There's a trade-off. We want the airlines to be prosperous, but also keep people safe. We want military operations to be as stealthy as they need to be, but also to be informative in cases where another plane might need that information. We have trade-offs, therefore. On the side of safety, having information broadcast from every plane in the sky about their position and even intent is important in commercial airspace where other aircraft with passengers might be. But also having the push for new technologies that will make things safer is also important.
Yeah, and Chairwoman Hamady mentioned that in her sit-down with Tom Fitzgerald. Tom, do you agree with that assessment?
I agree 100%. My takeaway, again, I'm not an aviation expert legally, you have competing interests here. You have the military, which needs to perform secret surveillance type missions, delivery missions, training missions. But this is one of the busiest airports in the nation. And the way it's laid out, the paths taken, the runways, it is just has the potential for accidents like this. So I think, again, I agree, separating them is the key thing.
Okay, so to that point, the NTSB, the FAA, the DOT, and the Pentagon, even Congress, seemingly not on the same page, it sounds like we've heard at different times. So when it comes to safety around DCA, does someone need to step in and take control and make sure proper safety protocols are in place? And if so, who would that be, Tom?
You know, we were talking about that. What you have here is several parties involved, and you need to reconcile them. I don't think any one party can fix it all. You have the Army, which has legitimate needs to fly helicopters there, sometimes without letting people know where they are, so they're not tracked or they can do their missions. You have a lot of commercial flights, and people need that there. So you've got the FAA, the Army, the other military forces, you have Congress. You have a lot of people there. So I think rather than one person, it'd be nice if basically all the parties involved got together with one voice.
Yeah, and that's what I think a lot of people, including the victims' families, are hoping for. The Rotor Act is one of the things that we have heard about, and this would be a bill that would basically improve safety and close some of the loopholes, paraphrasing, that may have led to that DCA disaster. It passed the Senate in December, but it still hasn't passed the House. Families of the victims want to see that happen by the one-year anniversary on January 29th. Ella, what do you think the holdup has been? Why don't you think it has passed the House yet?
I'm not sure I'm well qualified to say what Congress's holdups are here and there. I think that there, like was said, are trade-offs in putting a new policy in place versus trying to do the best you can with existing policy. And I think there also are questions as to whether the language used is sufficient for safety in the future.
Okay. So, Tom, the government has admitted some responsibility and liability. That happened back in December. But they have also pointed the finger at the airlines. So, airline damages can be capped. So what does this mean for the victims' families, those lawsuits, and what can happen moving forward?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The United States government came in and they represent, to put it in a way, both the FAA and the Army, and they admitted fault. So they have no cap on damages. But they also said we are liable among other tortfeasors, meaning the airlines. And right now there are motions pending by the airlines to get out of the case and say we are not responsible. And they've been fully briefed and we're waiting on those to be decided. If they're granted, and if the airlines are out, then the federal government may be solely responsible. But I think the plaintiffs in this case, from a pure legal point of view, are in a good spot. With the federal government admitting fault, there is at least one source there to get compensation for the victims. You want to include everybody you can as a lawyer to make sure there's plenty of compensation and you have all these fallbacks. But they're in a good spot, even with the federal government, but they'll still want to keep in the airlines.
Okay. Ella, we heard the victims' family members say that the one thing they hope happens is that once those final recommendations come from the NTSB, that they take action on them. We heard the chairwoman say that that isn't always the case. What is preventing those recommendations from being implemented, and what would have to change in order to make sure that they do?
I think the main thing is cost and practicality. Sometimes the NTSB recommends actions that could take time to perfect if it's a new technology, for example, and also that could be very costly, not only for airlines, but for airports and government entities. And there's always this balance between having an economically competitive operation versus having a safe operation. NTSB focuses on safety. Airlines, airports, and other entities in the air transportation system try to reach a holistic balance. I hope that even beyond the NTSB recommendations, we look at critical enabling data link technologies to reduce the possibility of this type of tragic accident further.
Right. My final question for both of you. Do you feel safe flying in and out of Reagan National Airport?
I'll go first here. As I studied this case, and I've known about this for a while, but as I've gotten in the details of this case, I feel less safe. It's a culmination of many things going on there. High volume, tricky routes, the military, with kind of flights going through without surveillance. I feel safe. I will continue to fly there, but I really do hope but people take action to make it safer.
Ella.
Air transportation is the safest way to go from point A to point B, and that has not changed despite the occasional tragic accident, such as the one we're discussing. I would fly into any U.S. airport on any U.S. carrier and sleep through most of the flight, including the landing if I was tired. So yes, I would fly into Reagan again.
All right, Ella and Tom, thank you so much for lending us your expertise and giving our viewers a clearer insight into this tragedy and the actions taken since. Thank you very much. All right, coming up next, still to come in our special coverage, 1 year after they answered the call to respond to a mass casualty event, we check back in with some of the first responders that were in the freezing waters of the Potomac River. We'll hear their perspective on that night and how they've mentally and physically recovered since when we come back. Stay with us.
We did not rest at all, and we worked for weeks and weeks to make sure that not only the loved ones were brought home, but we got their personal effects, and we did our job.
Responding to mass casualty events is a part of the job for local first responders, but they tell us nothing could have prepared them for the night of January 29th, 2025, and the weeks of recovery work that followed.
Hundreds of first responders from over 36 agencies dove into the freezing waters of the Potomac River to recover victims and their personal belongings, both a physically and emotionally grueling process.
Our Homa Bash spoke to some of the divers that were first on the scene about what they remember from that night.
They were racing against the clock, in the dark, on the water, and now we're hearing from the first responders who pulled victims from the river on the night of the crash, and the moments they will never forget.
I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone, so I haven't seen anything since they hit the river, but it was a CRJ and a helicopter that hit.
They are the first ones in and the last ones out.
It's the worst thing that I've ever seen in my career of 22 years here in Washington, D.C.
And on the night of January 29th, 2025, they were there in minutes.
I'm an on-call diver for the department, so my phone rings and I answer the call.
First responders from D.C. Fire and EMS, D.C. Police, neighboring counties and states. 350 first responders that first night from 40 different agencies.
At what point did you know this is different than anything else I've ever dealt with in my career?
Immediately. Yeah, immediately.
Officer Robert Varga is a diver with MPD's Harbor Patrol Unit. He did 3 dives that first night, ranging from 20 to 25 minutes, pulling 6 bodies from the river.
Each dive, you were just trying to see how long you could last underwater. It wasn't that we were running out of air, it was kind of we were running out of the ability to keep moving our hands, our fingers, and all that.
Despite the frigid temperatures and darkness, Varga says some things actually worked in their favor. The majority of the crash site sat in relatively shallow water, roughly 8 to 10 feet deep.
We actually had more visibility than I've ever seen in this river in 13 years. So some things did kind of fall into place to make it a little bit easier, but there's no way to prepare for that.
We train a lot. I don't think we train for this. I don't know how you train specifically for this scenario.
For Varga, what stands out most in his mind was the eerie quietness of arriving first and the overwhelming nature of the scene in the seconds after.
And then kind of the realization that not only are you witnessing it, you're the person that's going to be trying to help.
They understand the job, they have a lot of experience. But I think the magnitude of it was hard.
But beyond recovering victims, 67 remains in 6 days, it was just as crucial to bring their belongings to the surface.
Luggage to anything we size a laptop, down to anything the size of a cell phone, down to wedding rings and jewelry and anything that we could give back to the families.
How emotional is that?
Very, yeah. Each piece we would pull out kind of felt like a treasure in itself. And we knew it was, super important for anybody who had a lost family member in that event to have anything they could back from it.
We did not rest at all, and we worked for weeks and weeks to make sure that not only the loved ones were brought home, but we got their personal effects and we did our job.
As terrible as this incident is, it's a model response, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful for our region, the commitment of our region to work together.
Hundreds of first responders came out here that night, and many of them returned in the days, the weeks, and the months to come. And the weight of this tragedy, that'll stay with so many of them forever.
The grueling work that night puts public service in a sharp light, something to always be grateful for.
Look for the helpers. That's what Mr. Rogers always said. Still ahead, despite the tragedy, heartbreak, and overwhelming sense of loss, stories of love, community, and hope have still managed to shine through.
We'll share some of those stories when we come back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's been a heavy night as we get ready to mark 1 year since the deadly midair collision over DCA. We've cried, We've analyzed and we've honored the legacies of the 67 lives that were lost.
Along the way, there have been some moments of hope since January 29, 2025. Last March, U.S. Figure Skating and Monumental Sports and Entertainment hosted the Legacy on Ice fundraiser at Capital One Arena in tribute to the DCA crash victims. The beautiful and emotional sold-out event was put together in just over 30 days. It included 37 of figure skating's most iconic athletes and raised nearly $1.2 million to support first responders and the families and loved ones.
Several of the victims' families have also launched fundraisers and scholarships of their own, including memorial scholarships in the names of Elizabeth Keys and Sarah Lee Best at each of their law school alma maters, Georgetown Law and UPenn Cary Law, respectively. To honor and continue the legacy of Lindsay Carter Fields, her family has launched the Lindsay Fields Memorial Science Scholarship to empower future scientists to pursue their dreams. And the Greater White Bear Lake Community Foundation established the Wendy Jo Schaefer Foundation to support women in professional spaces. And Wendy's sister Emily sent us a message to share with you all tonight.
To continue her legacy, we want to ask, what would Wendy do? As a chemical engineer, she always strived to build up those around her, especially young women in the field. We started the Wendy Jo Schaefer Foundation to support young women, especially going into math, science, and engineering through scholarship and mentorship. Our hope is to continue her love of life and learning and changing the world. We love you so much, Wendy.
Our thanks to Emily for that beautiful message. You can find a list of other verified GoFundMes and fundraisers on the Fox Local app.
And as the world counts down to the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics, an emotional full circle moment for one skater who lost his parents in last year's Potomac plane crash. Maxime Naumov paid tribute to his late parents during the figure skating championships, and it landed him a spot on the men's U.S. figure skating team that's heading to the Olympics next month. Naumov says the games were one of the last things he spoke to his parents about, former world champions Vadim Naumov and Evgenia Shishkova, before they died. The deadly midair collision over DCA changed all of our lives. I want to say a special thank you to the families of the victims who joined us this evening. Your courage and strength all continue to inspire us.
Yeah, and I also want to thank our panel of experts and lawyers for their analysis and perspectives as we continue to hold those in power accountable for safety changes to prevent another tragedy like this from happening again.
And of course, a big thanks to all of you, our Fox 5 viewers, for joining us for this special program, for heeding the call of the families and what they need moving forward. Continue to stay with Fox 5 and Fox Local as we mark 1 year since this local tragedy. Good night.
Hello. Hi, Scott.
Did you come in from Florida?
No, New Zealand.
Oh, straight from New Zealand.
Hi, Scott.
Oh, let's move away from my car. The lights are on. Like, let's move back. Headlights are weird. Maybe that's better.
Hi, check 1, 2, 3, 4. Test, check.
Conditions still hit or miss, despite a lot of hard work.
The roads were not plowed at all.
An update on how things are looking tonight.
Plus, a grisly stabbing attack outside of a Frederick, Maryland home, killing at least one person. What we're learning from investigators about the potential suspect. And the head of Arlington School's Office of Safety arrested during yesterday's snowstorm. What he's accused of doing behind the wheel of a school vehicle. Your news starts right now. And we start the 10 tonight for the good news first. The snow and sleet have stopped falling. Now the major concern turns to icy roads, sidewalks, and freezing temperatures.
And we know that federal offices, along with all major school districts across the region, they've already announced closures for tomorrow, for Tuesday. You can find a full list, by the way, of closures scrolling right there at the bottom of your screen.
We have live team coverage for you tonight. Josh Rosenthal and David Kaplan are standing by with an update on